On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was flying from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Beijing, China when it mysteriously vanished from radar. All 239 people on board were never seen again. And even 8 years later, there are more questions than answers surrounding the disappearance of MH370. It was supposed to get to Beijing by 6:30 a.m., but it never did. At first, air traffic control tried to contact the plane. They had no idea that anything was wrong. They called out, "Malaysian 370, do you copy? Malaysian 370, please respond," but the pilots didn't respond. The last anyone heard from the pilots was when they told air traffic control, "All is well." Well, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, the pilot had recently taken a life insurance policy out for himself and his family. The pilot's total compensation, including his pension and insurance payouts, would have amounted to around $1.5 million. Well, the plane's disappearance came just 2 months after another Malaysia Airlines plane, MH17, was shot down over Ukraine, killing all 298 people on board. Many wondered if MH370 was lost to the same cause. However, there was no evidence to support this. What do you think happened to the plane? Let me know in the comments below. In fact, the official investigation into MH370 concluded that it wasn't a malfunction that caused the plane to disappear, but rather deliberate action by someone on the ground. This was certainly a huge sum of money, but not enough to convince someone to commit mass murder. And what if MH370 wasn't brought down by someone on the ground, but by someone in the sky? There haven't been many credible reports on this, but one of the most convincing pieces of evidence was published in the Australian Journal of Aviation. The author believes that MH370 was brought down by a missile fired from another plane. But why would someone shoot down a civilian plane? It is possible that the plane was mistaken for a different aircraft or it was targeted for political reasons. In 2014, Malaysia and China had become embroiled in a diplomatic row over disputed islands in the South China Sea, so it's possible that China intentionally shot down MH370 to send a message to Malaysia. But this is pure speculation. If anything, it only raises more questions than it answers. For starters, insurance policies are usually taken out by wealthy individuals. The average Joe doesn't need an insurance payout to turn his life around. Moreover, if the pilot really wanted the money, he could have just crashed the plane into an unpopulated area instead of murdering everyone on board. What could have caused them to go silent? Was it mechanical failure, pilot error, or something else entirely? And it is highly unlikely that a single terrorist could have overpowered the entire crew and prevented hundreds of people from escaping. What we do know is that the plane took off at 12:41 a.m. local time. In the days following the disappearance, authorities found a piece of the plane's inner left-wing flap on the island of Reunion, some 4,000 miles away from the expected flight path. Well, the official investigation concluded that the plane was deliberately flown off course by someone on board with the intention of deceiving authorities. But which passenger or crew member would have done such a thing and why? Some believed it was the co-pilot, but he had no known history of mental illness. He also had recently gone through a messy divorce, but that was hardly evidence enough to brand him a murderer. While this confirmed that the plane had indeed broken up, it shed no light on why or how it happened. So what do we think happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? Others believe that it was the pilot who did it. He had been in the news before landing his plane in bushes instead of on the runway. And 2 weeks before MH370 disappeared, he was reprimanded for taking the plane to low over residential areas. Now, these incidents could be easily written off as simple mistakes, but taken together, they paint the pilot as someone who is reckless with the lives of his passengers. But what motive could he possibly have had for murdering 239 people? Another theory is that a terrorist was responsible for the disaster, but no terrorist organization ever claimed responsibility for the attack. So could there have been a different explanation for what happened? Could the plane have simply malfunctioned? But what if we're looking at this the wrong way around? What if the official explanation isn't correct? The truth is, we do and know what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. All we can do is look at the evidence and draw our own conclusions.